Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Leah Smalley. I'm the Assistant Director of Financial Aid Services here at the Coordinating Board. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm super excited about today. I have actually some guests joining us this afternoon, so I'll introduce them in just a moment. What I'd like to do first is go through the agenda for the day, so hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. So on today's agenda, we're going to go through briefly the grant funds request enhancements that came out, the college access loan interest rate change that will be announced soon, the CAL process. I thought we could go through that as a group. There's some HelmNet loan portal enhancements that I thought I'd run through with the institutions. And then I'm going to be doing a net price calculator overview and demo on my computer so that you can see kind of what the steps are, especially if you're new to your institution and you're not familiar with the state's net price calculator. And then I'm going to be going through some upcoming events and things that are happening in the next month or two, including deadlines and training. So that being said, let's get started. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was the grant funds request enhancements. On the 4th of April, a flyer went out to the institutions, which is on the right-hand part of the screen, and it's just announcing that this summer the Coordinating Board is making enhancements to the system that you request your grant funds. So for Texas Grant, TEOG, and TEG, you'll still log into the same portal, but it's going to be modified and improved so that you have real-time data, meaning you'll know what your allocation amount is, how much you've used, how much is pending. You'll be able to run year-to-date reporting to see what you've requested and when, and you'll also be able to see where your request is in the process. So if you've submitted something and it's pending, you'll know that. So it's just a lot more information available so that you know where your money is at and you don't have to rely on an emailed copy that's sent out in a PDF. So it's in the testing stages. We're developing the new portal as we speak. So each month on the webcast, I'll try and give you some additional information on where it's at. But as of right now, it's in somewhat of the early stages, so I just wanted to make sure that you saw the flyer and that you're getting super excited about it because the intent is that it makes your life much easier. So moving on, like I mentioned, I have a guest here today. Many of you may be familiar with Natalie Sunderland. She is actually a business analyst in student financial aid programs, and she was in our ISS department previously, so you may have worked with her in prior years. And she's here today just to field questions on some of the topics that I'm going over because she is what I consider a subject matter expert on the loan programs, on processing, and just the systems in general. So I wanted to make sure that if y'all have questions that I had someone that can answer those, or if she and I can't answer those questions for you, that we get back to the group. So let's move forward. College access loan interest rate change. We will be sending out a formal notification, but I did mention this on last month's webcast that there was going to be an interest rate reduction, but I wanted to clarify on last month's webcast I said that loans that were received, and I wanted to clarify that it's loans certified prior to May 1st will carry the 5.3 rate, which is the current rate. Loans certified on or after May 1st will carry a 5.2. So it is a small reduction, but every little bit counts. So again, we will be sending out information on the reduction and processing information. If it affects your school in any way, we'll provide that guidance to you shortly. But just wanted to put that on everyone's radar and to provide that clarification. Moving on, one of the things that we get a lot here is questions on, what is the process, where are the funds at, where is this loan at in the process as far as like the application, and we get question after question. So I thought it would be helpful to kind of go through it, especially if you're new to state loan programs or your institution and you've never done college access loan, Be on Time, or the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program. These three state loan programs are all very similar when they're processed, but I'm specifically going to be looking at CAL today Again, the other two programs are very similar. There's just only one slight difference, which is the other two programs are initiated by the institution, whereas College Access Loan is initiated by the borrower, meaning they apply first and then you certify second. So again, when we go through this process, keep in mind the rest of the process is pretty much the same. It's just that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't trying to talk about all three at the same time. So let's talk about the process flow for loans. So many of you may be familiar with something called the Truth in Lending Act. If you've been in financial aid a while, you are familiar. If you haven't been in financial aid for a while, this may be something that it's just always been in your experience with lending. But the Truth in Lending Act was enacted back in 1968 by the Federal Reserve Board, and it's a federal consumer protection law designed to ensure that individuals understand any financial agreements they enter into. It ensures that lenders disclose important information about loans like the rates, the fees, other terms and conditions, and it also forbids lenders from pushing consumers into loans or financial products that would benefit the lender. So later on in 2008, the Higher Education Opportunity Act amended the Truth in Lending to make clear that entities providing private education loans, including higher education institutions, must comply with Truth in Lending federal disclosures, and as well as the new disclosures designed for private education loans. So the Federal Reserve Board revised Regulation Z to reflect and expand upon the statutory changes made by the Truth in Lending. So back in the day, it was a very short process. Again, if you've been in financial aid a while and you've been doing private lending with banks or even at your institution, the student would simply apply. They would get approved through credit. They would sign their promissory note. The school would certify it. They would get usually a notice of guarantee or some kind of paperwork showing what their rate was and some of the information, but the funds would go out shortly thereafter. So it was a very short timeline. I know back when I used to do this many years ago, we could certify and receive the funds within a couple days. I mean, it was a very fast process. But again, in order to protect students, protect borrowers in general, this had to change the process to include making sure that they know their obligation and exactly what they're entering into. So after the Regulation Z went into effect, you'll notice on my slide that there's a lot more steps to the process. There's different forms they have to sign, there's waiting periods, there's a different things. So I wanted to go through that one by one with everybody. And I know some of you may be thinking, hey, wait, are we going to see this again? Similar to last month, I will be posting the PowerPoint along with this video online, so you'll be able to get a copy of it. So let's go through the process together. So the first step in the process is the online application. The student creates an account through HelmNet, and they actually apply. They are first presented a solicitation disclosure, and then they do the online application and submit their promissory note, and then they're given the private education loan applicant self-certification form, which is a mouthful, which is basically the self-certification, the borrower self-certification. Once that happens, it goes through an approval process, both for credit and for the documentations the student has to provide. So sometimes that can take time, especially if they have a co-signer. So you'll notice that that is a longer process than it was many years ago. Once everything is received and the student's credit is approved, then it goes into a certification where the institution would either submit that online through HelmNet, or they can submit a common line file through MoveIt. And we have a lot of the bigger schools are set up to do common line file transfers. Some of the smaller ones are not. If you are interested in setting up online common line, you can contact us through our online inquiry system, and we can talk about what the steps are to get you set up. After the school certifies the loan and everything is good to go, a private education loan approval disclosure, or something we typically refer to as a LAD, it includes the loan details, and then it's physically mailed out to a student with instructions on what they need to do, and it has all the information, and they have to accept their loan terms. So that is, again, physically mailed to the mailing address on file. So Many of our students do not check their mail, so if they're wondering where this is, you may want to let them know that that piece is still through the physical mail. Once the loan the loan approval disclosure is sent, then the student logs on to HelmNet and they electronically complete the active acceptance of loan terms, so they're acknowledging that they still want the loan. Then something called a consummation disclosure, and the actual name of the form that they see is a private education loan final approval. And it's mailed to the student, yet again, informing of them their right to cancel and indicating the earliest day that they can get the funds. And then once that's sent out, again, it goes through a process, and then the funds are delivered 11 business days after it's sent in the mail. So what does that look like timeline-wise? I thought this would be helpful to kind of give you the 11-day breakdown. So again, once everything's good and we send that consummation disclosure through the mail to the borrower, it takes about 3 days that we allot for reasonable delivery of time. And then there's the right to cancel period, which is 4 days. And so it's approximately midnight of the 7th day after it's mailed out from day 1. And then there's 3 days where the funds are delivered to the institution, so it's 3 business days, because again, it typically goes through the comptroller, so it has to go through their process. So that's the 11 days that's referenced in the prior slide, and again, I thought it would be helpful because when the student applies is knowing where they're at in the process. I wanted to talk about the HelmNet enhancements. Now that you know kind of what the flow is for the application and the certification and how the funds flow through, some HelmNet enhancements are being implemented, and we sent out a notice about a week ago that there was going to be some maintenance being done, and as of today those enhancements are still being implemented in the system, in the HelmNet system. So as of today, you still will not see those until they are released. And we do plan to send another announcement once they are live in production. So when you want to see where your loan is at in the process, currently there is a checklist online. And on the screen that I'm on right now, it has exactly where you click to see that status. So currently, this is what the checklist looks like. Many people may not realize, but the order in which the tasks are assigned right here, they're not all aligned with the actual process, and that was brought to our attention when we first rolled it out. And so we've been working to try and reconfigure that checklist so that it aligns better with the process. So once the checklist is updated with the enhancements, you're going to notice that a lender approval complete line right here is going to move up above the school certification, because in order to certify, this has to be complete. The loan has to have all documentation in, and the credit has to be approved. So I'm going to show you, moving on, this is what it's going to look like. And it does say coming soon until it's available. So you'll notice it's a lot longer. It has more information on it so that the borrower and the school and the lender knows exactly where they're at in the process. And you'll also notice that it has these little help bubbles that have been added to each one that help identify either something that still needs to happen or just provides clarity on where it's at in the process. So I wanted to show y'all kind of what they look like. On this particular one, the right to cancel period has been added, so you'll be able to see exactly those days that we discussed. And then once it's final, and so after 3/13, this date will populate on the right-hand side. And then once the funds are ready to disperse, after the funds have paid, you'll also see a date on the right-hand side, and that will stay on the checklist until 5 days after disbursement. Whereas currently it just goes away. The checklist is no longer available, so it's going to stay there for 5 days. Okay. So this is an example of the new checklist with the help bubbles I wanted to just show you. We tried to make it so that if a borrower logs in or an institution logs in, you can expand the bubble to just get more clarification on what either needs to be done or what the process is. So you'll notice, for example, I'm just going to show you. So even on here, the borrower has e-signed the application, the promissory note, or mailed it in, and it has been processed. So this is done, and that's why the date is there. Another example is over here. This is the loan guarantee. The coordinating board has approved your loan application so that they know that it's done. You'll also know that we tried to expand and improve on how things are labeled, and I'll go through that on the next slide. But previously we were using kind of internal jargon or things that we thought were obvious, and unfortunately they did not match the actual forms or disclosures. And so when students were seeing that online, or maybe even the institutions, it didn't really clarify what was needed. So they decided to go ahead and improve those by naming them the actual thing that's on the form. So for example, it actually says now private education loan approval disclosure, which is that LAD I mentioned. Before it said consummation disclosure, but the form is called the private education loan final approval, or LCD. So again, you'll notice those differences. So the loan terminology, again, currently on the checklist or what we have out there, for example, it'll say borrower self-certification. Those have been improved terminology-wise so that they are the actual name of the form. So those are just some examples I wanted to show y'all. The last thing. Okay, so here's where I wanted to open the floor. I do have more on the presentation to talk about, but I wanted to let schools take a chance. It says the screen is my screen still frozen? Because I didn't see your comment, Denise. Okay, good. Like I said, I have Natalie here, and she's going to take questions if I can't answer them. So I wanted to at least open it up to see, loan processing wise or anything that I mentioned, if there's something that you want to know that we can answer for you. So I'm going to give it just a few minutes and see what people type through. I know y'all are thinking really hard about what you want to ask. It's fine. If you don't have any questions, if you can just type no questions. No questions, good, good. Okay, I got one from Pam. Will the dates to the scheduled disbursement date change if the student doesn't return the loan disclosure? So if you certify the loan with a certain disbursement date, and then the student doesn't return or log in and do the loan acceptance or approval disclosure, will that change the disbursement dates? Yes.
The answer to that is, hi, it's Natalie. The answer to that would be that they're not going to see an actual disbursement date on the bottom of the checklist until after they've accepted their loan terms. So they won't see what you originally requested. Hopefully that answers your question.
And if the disbursement date is scheduled and it's too soon, it will automatically get pushed out based on when they complete their portion. So I hope that answers it as well. And Pam said yes. Great. Eileen asked, how do we cancel a loan from the certification list? Those you still send in to us using the contact us. You can send those through and we'll cancel those for you. Did that answer your question, Eileen? Eileen has another question. Will there be time where schools can cancel the loan on the HelmNet system versus sending it to the coordinating board? There are certain functionalities where you can cancel a loan depending on where it is in the process, in the application process. You should be able to go online and there's a menu that you can cancel the loan. But again, it depends on where it's at in the process. And if it doesn't allow you to do that, you can send in the request and we can do it for you. Okay, great. All right, no questions. Was this helpful, or was this information you already knew? Or just a refresher? Just curious. It's a refresher for some. Excited about the enhancements. We are too. Good. Okay, great. All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and move on just so that we can make sure that I go through the rest of the presentation. And if you do have questions, I know I mentioned this on last month's, you can always send those through to us, and we can answer them either through our contact us, or if you have specific questions for me, I have my contact information at the end of the presentation. So, net price calculator. If you've worked for an institution for a long time, you may be very, very familiar with this. If you're new, you may not, but the state's net price calculator is something that is available on our website. So what I wanted to do today, since it's coming up this year, we do it annually, we do a big update, is I wanted to go through net price calculator with everybody, just high level, and go through the manual, make sure you know what you're doing, and just kind of reiterate some of the details of net price calculator with everybody. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and load the upcoming guidelines that we're going to be releasing. These are not available yet. These are pending until we finish testing, but again, I'm going to be going through the process with everybody today. So, net price calculator, these are released typically between April and May of each year, and it is a requirement through one of the laws that was created, and each of the public institutions are required to participate in net price calculator if they have undergraduate first-year students. So if you're a health-related institution, those don't count, and then private and independent institutions are also highly encouraged to do it, but not required to do it. Now, federal requirements do also require you have a net price calculator. So I've seen a lot of institutions where they'll have the states and then they'll have their own. But in order for us to maintain the states on our website, College for All Texans, it does require an annual update where public schools have to send in their information. And again, we will be releasing that in the next few weeks. We're just wrapping up testing right now. So back in the day, they created the net price calculator to be as consumer friendly and easy to use as possible. The goal was to make information transparent, make sure that people knew how much it costs to go to school. We were just talking about the truth in lending, so this goes along with that. You know, there's a lot of laws that were put into effect to make sure that students know exactly what they're signing up for and what kind of funding they're getting. So this tool was designed to let students kind of shop around and see how much things are going to be, so they can go from school to school. So one of the nice parts about our net price calculator through the state is it allows a student to compare 3 schools at once. So again, that's why it's so vital that every year schools actually provide that information to us, so that way when students are looking, especially high school students, they can get a good comparison of which schools are going to be the most appropriate for them. So the way that the net price calculator works is we have an administrator portal, and each institution is given a login with a password which is given to the director, and then when they log in, it allows them to update certain information in there. So the side that the student sees is totally separate. So they're just going to enter similar to when they do a FAFSA, but there's a whole separate process that the institutions have to do to make sure that the tool that the student or the parent is using is up to date. So that's what I'm going to go through today. So the administrative site, the thing you have on your screen, is very lengthy, so I'm going to actually pull up the net price calculator website to go through it with you guys. So allow me just a moment to do that. So this is the administrator portal, Like I mentioned, each school has their username and password that they would use to log in. If you don't have that or you don't know it because you're new, then you can send a request through user access. It's the same one to receive any access through the coordinating board for financial aid purposes. You can send that through and we will contact you to provide that to you. So once you sign in, there's a menu bar on the left-hand side. Mine may look a little different because I have additional access as one of the owner administrators. And over here on the left-hand side, this is, let me click on each one. We have our budget screen, we've got the award screen, award data import screen, optional text screen, and logo screen. So these are all the ones that you need to be familiar with. And so I'm not going to go in order. I'm going to kind of hop around a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of go through them. So the main one that institutions need to do every year for what we're about to release notification-wise to upload your data is on the award data import. There are two CSV files, one for dependent students and one for independent students, and then there's an instruction sheet, and we also have the basic instructions here on the right-hand side. So you would want to download each one of these templates, and then when you open it, it's going to load a CSV file. Give me just a moment. It's loading. And on here from your system, I've heard some schools do this manually, some have a program that pulls it, but it does require that the blue boxes be filled in, and this is what loads the net price calculator data. So again, the instructions on how to fill this in, because I'm not going to go into that today, they are right here on the detailed instructions. It tells you exactly which columns fill in. So if you've got your in-state, out-of-state, your in-district, out-of-district, if they live with parents off campus, all of those things are going to drive the results page. And so it's really important that you have those numbers right so that the end user gets a good idea of what it costs and what aid they're going to get. Because the portion that y'all are filling in and uploading is the actual aid amounts. So let me go back here. I apologize, this closed out. Let me reload it. Okay, hang on just a second. Here it comes. All right, so when we were talking about here, once you have it filled in, either again by running it through your system or filling those fields in, then you will update the dependent import and the independent. Sorry, excuse me, dependent here, independent here. What you do is you save your CSV file, and then once you're ready to upload it, you hit browse. It'll open a box here and you'll upload the file and hit this upload button. Once it uploads successfully, if you go over here on the left-hand side and click awards, this will allow you to see what information was actually imported. So I have a test version here that I'm going to show you. So for example, this test school has all of these values that pulled in from their CSV file. And this is for the dependent student award table. And then it has the independent. It has in-district, out-of-district. It really depends on the type of school you are, if you're a community college or if you're just a public school or if you're private. So these things are all driven by that. You'll notice some of these say 0 because they didn't have information in them. So you do want to go through this to make sure that it does align with the file that you uploaded. And it was my understanding that at one point you could modify these manually. I believe it's been disabled. I cannot confirm that because I haven't checked this year, and they may have disabled that because they want people to upload those through using the CSV file. So that's that. The budgets here, again, this one doesn't have budgets. Is there a school that wants to volunteer, and I'll pull them up? I just don't want to single anyone out. Is there anyone that I can look at their college student budgets? Somebody wants to be on there. Any school at all. There's no right or wrong here. Is anyone there? Temple, yay! Okay, now we're just typing. Okay, so I'm going to use Temple College. So when I pull Temple College up, it's going to drive this information here. This is coming from College Student Budgets, which y'all also upload through a separate portal. Okay, so again, you would want to review to make sure that this is aligning with the ones that you're doing right now, which were due by April the 1st. So to make sure that the end user gets the right tuition and fees and the right books and supplies and the overall cost of attendance, you would want to make sure that this is lining up correctly. The last thing, or last two things I should say, is we do recommend that you upload your logo. So Temple, I'm still using y'all, but this is for the end user. When it pops up on the results page, it'll have your logo. So it's kind of nice so that they can have that visual. And then optional text is something that we allow schools to do where they can put in different information. So Sam Houston, I'm going to use y'all just in case you have some. Let's see. Sam Houston, let's see. No, y'all don't have any. Texas A&M, maybe Texas A&M does. I know a lot of schools do use this because I saw it. Brooke. Okay, so here's an example. They're basically disclaimers or things that you want your students to be aware of. So you can see in here, if you subtract this, that we highly encourage you to fully complete and submit the scholarship, blah, blah, blah. So there's just a lot of information that you can provide. I don't know the character limit of this, but it's pretty lengthy. And then once you get to the end result page, it will be under the net price calculator as additional text. So that's what this is. So again, we went through each one of these. Again, the basics is just an explanation of kind of navigating budgets, pulls from College Student Budgets. The awards is just whatever you uploaded or imported into the tables. The awards allow you to download the files and then update those each year. And then optional texts are messages or disclaimers you want to provide to the student, and then the logo. So I wanted to talk about real quick, since we're doing this coming up in the next weeks or months, just the piece that I don't know a lot of schools do, which is checking your net price calculator data on the user side. So we do recommend that schools do that every year, and since I have 3 schools, I just wanted to show you an example of the real net price calculator and go through that real quick. So I'm going to go to College for All Texans, and when you get to one of the main screens, the net price calculator is on the right hand side over here, and when you hit calculate, it's going to, this is what the borrower or the parent or anyone who uses it is going to see. It has all these disclaimers. Make sure that they understand that it's truly an estimate. And when they start, it's similar to the FAS. It just asks some basic questions to try and generate an estimated EFC. And I say estimated even though it's already an estimate, but double. So I'm going to use 3 of the schools that volunteered here. So Temple, and then we had Sam Houston, and then they are thinking about A&M. So let's do that. So on Temple College, they're living off campus. Sam Houston, they're living on campus, and then here they're going to live at home. They are 19. No, they're not married. Yes. Oops. You'll notice that it won't let them go through unless all are green. So keep going. Married. Say 50,000. I'll do. So as you go through, you'll notice again they're changing to be green. 3 and 1. Okay, so once they hit submit, let's just take a look at it. So this is what you would want to do once you upload all your data. And the reason, again, you want to do this is you have to ensure that your tuition and fees make sense Your aid that it's pulling makes sense. And because I know y'all work with students so often, you should kind of know if it's pulling the right grant. So if you know that they've got a zero EFC and it pulls no grant funding, then that may be a red flag that something didn't go right, and you want to make sure, because again, students are using this to compare schools. So if your school has the wrong information, I mean, they're going to be totally misinformed, even though it's not exact. So again, this is just an example. So it has the status on what they chose, and then it has the tuition and their cost of attendance broken down here. So this is driven by college student budgets. This down here is driven by the tables that you uploaded, and the way it decides is based on the questions that they answered. It goes and it does a EFC calculation on the back end, and then it pulls this in to a line. And then as you scroll, there's the Texas A&M disclaimers that we talked about. So it's additional information. And then they can print the results. They can apply for aid. If they click on this button, it launches over to the FAFSA site. And then if they click this button, then they can start over and look at 3 additional schools or compare different ones. This down here is a button so that they can look at prior year data. The reason it's 16-17 is because we use certified data, so it takes a while for that to get loaded. So there is kind of a disparity between years. But again, once we roll over, it'll at least get updated to 17-18. So this is still from last year. So let me go back to this. I just want to make sure I covered everything. We did go through the administrator site. We went through the upload process and what the different screens are. And then, like I mentioned, if you need access to Net Price Calculator, you want some additional training, I'm happy to do that with a school too. I know there's some private schools that have requested doing that because, again, it's something that you wouldn't have to pay for through your school. I know a lot of schools use it because it's included through the state. You can set that up through me. I'm happy to help you with that process. So that is that. I'm going to stop there again and ask, is there any questions or comments on Net Price Calculator that I can help clarify? And you can just type away. I like the interaction. I know people are frantically typing right now. I can just sense it. Here they go. When do you think we will be getting the instructions? Good question. Like I said, we're testing, so we don't typically release the instructions or anything like that until the memo goes out. But we are definitely wrapping that up soon, and so you should have it out. The deadline, I believe, on our institutional calendar is May 31st, so we wanted to at least allow the schools a good month to upload those. And since college student budgets just closed out, that should give people enough time to do that. So, didn't really answer your question, Denise, but coming soon, very soon, is the goal. So, stay tuned. Thank you, Sue, for the compliment. All right, so if no one has anything else on net price, I'm going to keep going. Let me shift back. I'm almost to the end here. I do have a couple more things. So upcoming events and deadlines. This I like to kind of go through things that have been sent out or things that are coming up. The program guidelines are in the process of being approved, so you should expect to see those in either by the end of April or early May. That's the goal. We will be releasing those as they are available, so we plan, if something's out sooner than later, we'll just be releasing them and sending them one by one or in groups, kind of like we did last year. So again, the goal is to get those out much sooner so that you can utilize those while you're packaging for the fall. Year-round grant guidance. I think I mentioned last year about summer grants. Because reallocation was eliminated and schools can use their funding until the end of the fiscal year. We have been getting calls on how do we handle if we want to give funding through the summer. So we're working on formal guidance right now, and we will be sending that out to the institutions on what you need to do for 18-19 and also 19-20. So that will be sent out. I don't have any other updates as of today, but it is coming very, very soon. The last thing is online loan reporting. For the last year or so, the loan reports that used to be available through HelmNet were pulled down, and so schools are sending in contact us inquiries on requesting different things like certifications, pending documents, pending disbursements. So we do get those very frequently when we upload those reports for you for loans into Move It. But we are launching a project. It is not set to be done until next year, but I wanted to make y'all aware that we're building a new loan portal through HelmNet that's going to allow schools to not only get the loans that you got before, but we're hoping to build in some new ones as well. So that is on the radar. Since we talked about the loans and HelmNet so much, I wanted to at least give you some happy news that we are working on that. It's on our project list and it has begun. So as I get more information, I will continually bring that up on the webcast throughout this year and give you some updates. Upcoming training, we have again the TASFA regional training. Tomorrow, actually, the coordinating board is hosting here. I will be presenting again on different topics. So if you are coming to Austin, I will see you then. If you have not made it to one of the regionals, there's one more next week after the Austin site, which is in Frisco up in the Dallas area. So it is free. If you have staff or if you yourself want to attend and you can leave, it's a really great presentation. They're doing a NASFA credential certification. The Department of Education is presenting, and then of course the coordinating board will be presenting. So wanted to let y'all know about that. New Aid Officer Workshop, if you're new to financial aid or even to your institution, each year TASFA hosts this training, and it'll be in May, and it's up in, I know it's where Great Wolf Lodge is. Why am I? Grapevine. Is that right? Yes, Grapevine. So if you want to go to New Aid Officer Workshop, you can go to the TASFA website to look into registration. And then the next FAS webcast is going to be May 14th at 2 o'clock. So again, I'll have a new list of topics, which I'll send out about 2 weeks prior so that you can see if they're something that relates to your role or if you're interested in joining. And we do record and post those online for other people if they can't join. So upcoming deadlines, we have the TASP nomination period is set to open next week on April 15th. Preliminary allocations, I wanted to just let you know if you didn't see the notices that came out and just recap that for everybody. So on April 4th, we sent out TEOG, Texas College Work Study, and the Texas College Work Study Mentorship Program. And the 10-day review period will go on where schools can review the data that was sent and the numbers that were sent. And then if you have any questions or discrepancies, you would want to send that through the Contact Us inquiry link to let us know so we can review that for you. So the due date is April 18th to respond. The TEG program was also sent out on April 4th, but it's a 30-day review, so it's due on May 6th. And part of the TEG preliminary allocation review requires that private schools log in to Move It to download a file to review students on their first SAP. In order for us to make sure that your allocation amounts are correct, that does need to be done. So you'll log back in to Move It once you have the SAP status for the students that are on there, and then you'll send a Contact Us to let us know that it's complete. And then once we have all the school's data, we'll be able to revise any totals that are needed and then send those back out. Texas Grant and Beyond Time are still pending approval, so if you were wondering where those are at, they have not been sent yet, but they will once they're approved. So if you thought you missed it, you didn't. They're not out yet, and we do plan to get those out shortly. The last thing is the validation deadline date for the FADS reporting cycle 1 is next week. We have seen an increase in activity. We still have quite a few schools that have not validated. Our team is reaching out to schools one by one, seeing how we can help. You can always send something through FADB if you have a specific question or if you need support in any way, especially if you're new. The FADS is definitely a beast of a report, and we know that schools need help with that. So please do not hesitate to contact us, because that's what we're here for. So that is next week. So I'm sure everyone has it on their radar. Just wanted to remind everybody. And that's all the deadlines I have. And I think that's it. Let me go back over here. As a reminder, institutional phone lines open Monday through Friday, 8 through 5. That's so you can call us. We have a live line. If you have any questions, send them to us. And then this is my contact information. If you have a specific question, I urge you to use the contact us inquiry just in case I'm out of the office. It just allows us to route it to the appropriate person. If you have something specific to my webcast, you again send it through contact us, and then I can either answer that or send it to someone who can help you, such as Natalie, like a subject matter expert. We created a Webcast survey last time. This helps me understand what information you want to know and how I'm doing and whether these are useful or not. So if you could take the time to complete that, that would be very, very beneficial for me and for our team, so we know what to develop. And then last time I mentioned, it's not up on the screen, but on our SFAP webpage, we also have a customer service satisfaction survey. If you call and speak with someone, or you have a positive or negative experience with anything that Financial Aid Services is doing, you can always give us feedback for that through our customer satisfaction survey. And of course, I have our two phone lines here that you can call and give us feedback. So that is the end. I'm going to open it up yet again for questions. I see some that have popped through. Let's see. Does year-round include work study? No, the year-round guidance that we're going to release is for grant funds, because work study is still subject to the reallocation process. So if you encumbered all your money and you still have that, then you'll still use your funding. If you returned any money, then it is gone. Don't forget the debt letter. Your student is due before June 30th. So Eileen's just reminding people about the debt letter to your students is due before June 30th. And as a side note, I may end up doing a training on the debt letter eventually. So again, stay tuned to the agendas. I may have someone come and speak about the debt letter at some point. And again, you can use that survey to give me topic suggestions or any feedback on this. Let me reword work study. Can we utilize funding through August 31st, or is 5/31 the deadline? I want to say that we sent out the deadline to use the funding. I will double check on that, Irma. I'd hate to tell you the wrong thing. So let me find out, and then I'll let you know. All right. Okay, well, we have 10 minutes. I'm going to hang on the line for a few just so that I can answer any additional questions. We had quite a few people join, so I really, really appreciate y'all logging in to hear me talk. Again, we'll have another one next month, and I'll send that out about 2 weeks before. I'm really excited for everybody who's coming to Austin, because I don't get out in the field as much as I'd like to, and that's something that's going to change this year. We're going to try and get out to more schools and go visit people. But if you're coming to town, then you'll see me tomorrow. All right, well, I don't see any other questions popping through, so I know people have plenty of work to do, and I will give you the gift of time, and we're going to end the webcast here. So again, if you have any questions, send those through to us. Otherwise, I will talk to you next month. And Deshay just replied, thanks, Deshay. I didn't even know you were on. All right, everyone have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you on next month's webcast. Have a great day.